On page 11, we'll start to look at how communications influences relationships. Research studies tell us that our actions speak louder than our words. Those who have studied communications tell us that our attitude and actions account for 93% of our communication with others. Our nonverbal body language is 55%, and our tone of voice is 38%. That leaves only 7% for the actual words. Our body language and tone of voice communicates our values, and they show our attitudes towards others. Communications has an influence on our relationship with God and others. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? What does your body language communicate to others? What are you trying to achieve in your communications? To warn? To inform? To request information? To exchange information? To develop a relationship? To improve understanding? Or to influence and motivate others? What method do you use to communicate and influence others? Yes, we may need to get their attention, yet we need to learn to communicate without being abrasive. Don't be a caveman. There is a difference between broadcasting and communications. Radio and television stations broadcast with the hope that they're reaching someone and they're listening. Even if someone is listening, do they understand? You will not know until you get feedback, either through body language or words. Even then, when the other person does not understand, all you get is noise. Both may be speaking, yet no one is understanding. To have real communication, you need an exchange of information that both understand. What causes this noise? It is a perception difference. Example, if I said nut, what mental picture do you get? Was it this? Or was it this? Who's right? Both. What kind of communication took place? None. Here's another example. What does this sentence say? When the sentence is translated into English, it says, today's subject is communications. In 1 Corinthians 14, verse 9, we are told, if you talk to a person in a language that they don't understand, how will they know what you mean? You might as well be talking to an empty room. We find that communication goes even deeper. Nelson Mandela once said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart. When communications is done right, it's a powerful tool. We find in Genesis 11, verse 1, that the whole world had one language and common speech. Genesis 11, verses 5 through 9 tell us how powerful communications is. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. We find that the Bible gives us 4 communication principles. Principle number 1, listen much and speak little. Principle number 2, control your emotions. Principle number 3, respect the viewpoint of others. And principle number 4 is speak the truth. Where do we find these principles? Principle number 1 is found in Proverbs 15:28. A good man thinks before he speaks. The evil man pours out his evil words without a thought. Then in Proverbs 19:10, we're told, "Don't talk so much. You keep putting your foot in your mouth. Be sensible and turn off the flow." Proverbs 21:23 goes on to say, "Keep your mouth closed and you'll stay out of trouble." And James 1 verse 19 says, "Dear brothers, don't ever forget that it is best to listen much, speak little, and not become angry." This brings us to the second communication principle. Proverbs 10:14 says, "A wise man holds his tongue, only a fool blurts out everything he knows. That only leads to sorrow and trouble." Proverbs 14:29 goes on to say, "A wise man controls his temper. He knows that anger causes mistakes." Then Proverbs 15:1 tells us, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but harsh words causes quarrels." 1 Peter 3:9 goes on to say, "Don't repay evil for evil. Don't snap back at those who say unkind things about you or to you." Ever ask the question, why are they acting the way they do? This brings us to principle number 3, that of viewpoint. Where are they coming from? Their family background, their previous experience, all play a role in their attitude and action towards others. You need to respect the viewpoint of others. We see in Proverbs 17:14 that it is hard to stop a quarrel once it starts, so don't let it begin. Then Proverbs 18:12 says, "The intelligent man is always open to new ideas. In fact, he looks for them." We find in Proverbs 27:17, "A friendly discussion is as stimulating as the sparks that fly when iron strikes iron." We find in the fourth communication principle, that of speaking the truth. Proverbs 12:5 tells us, "A good man's mind is filled with honest thoughts. An evil man's mind is crammed with lies. Then in Ephesians 4:25 we are told, "Stop lying to each other. Tell the truth. For we are part of each other, and when we lie to each other, we are hurting ourselves." Peter tells us in 1 Peter 3:10, "If you want a happy, good life, keep control of your tongue and guard your lips from telling lies." James goes on to say in James 3:2, "If anyone can control his tongue, it proves that they have perfect control over himself in every other way." James reminds us in James 3:7, "Men have trained or can train every kind of animal." Yet in James 3:8 he tells us, "But no human being can tame the tongue." The human sinful nature that is revealed in Jeremiah 17:9, that the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked, confirms our inability to control the tongue. Now remember to keep these 4 principles in mind. When trying to communicate, one's perception of what the other person is saying is what leads to noise. Do you remember the illustration on perception of the nut? On page 12, we'll look at the perceptions encountered in the 4 communication principles. To view the Notebook on Life series, visit us on the web at www.christianvisualarts.com.